Hi there, Annette Lawler here. Welcome back to our LT Talks podcast, Localization Talent Talks. So we've been chatting with consultants over the last number of weeks, almost 2 months now. These are consultants that are available for hire through us or directly, working on a freelance basis with a wide range of skills that they have to offer the language industry. We've been talking to specialists in machine translation, mergers and acquisition, developing localization and globalization strategies for end client companies, how to work with modern vendors, and many other topics. Today is no different. We will focus, though, on sales, strategic selling techniques, and why they're important for language service providers. Joining us today to help us on this topic and offer up some advice here on strategic selling techniques is Jim Watson. Jim is based in the US. He has 22 years of sales experience. He began his sales career in Xerox Corporation, where he received numerous recognition awards based on sales success. He then successfully founded 4 businesses and received an SBA 200 award by the US Small Business Administration in 2011. Jim then spent 3 years in Exact Data Discovery, an e-discovery service provider, as director, regional vice president, and vice president of national accounts. In 2017, he joined the language industry. He was recruited to join Multiling, an LSP in patent translation space, as VP of Global Sales. He later became Senior Vice President of Global Sales and Marketing before Multiling was sold to Questal Corporation, something that's becoming ever more present in the localization industry. Jim received a BBA from the University of Iowa and an MBA from Drake University with an international emphasis from the Boston University London program, and completed an executive education program at MIT, or Massachusetts Institute of Technology. If you bear with us for just a few moments, we're going to get Jim on the line and we'll be right back with you. So good morning, Jim. How are you today?
Good, Annette. How are you?
Yeah, fantastic. So it's your morning now. You're based in Central Time?
I am. I'm in Minneapolis,
Okay.
and we're already experiencing snow in October.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is that early? How early does it normally snow?
Yeah, really. Typically, it's in November, so October
Okay.
is really early.
Okay.
But
Okay.
you'll deal with it, right?
We'll deal with anything this year. Anything they throw at us this year, we can deal with it.
That's exactly right.
Perfect. So, Jim, just talking to you a little bit about, and I know from a recruitment standpoint, certainly with us, one of the biggest challenges that we have sometimes, and that I know our clients have, is within sales. Breaking into new markets, finding talent that has the ability to do that, and I'd like to kind of understand from you maybe what is strategic selling versus other types of selling.
Sure. So, the way I think about that, Annette, is really 3 different types. One is transactional, and I call that pens and paper clips. And typically that's a low risk type of a purchase. And so there's not a lot of investment from the corporate side. And then a relationship sale, which is really one-on-one. Now, it could be high risk for a corporation in terms of the type of purchase that they're making. It could be a high dollar amount, but it's based upon a relationship. So it's based upon a person versus a entity, a supplier that's all the value the corporation brings or supplier brings. And then the last is strategic selling, which I think is it certainly is complex. And the way I think about that is you have multiple decision makers or influencers that are going to be part of that decision process. So it's really strategic to get from point A to point B, and point B is a position of greater strength. So it takes a lot more strategy, thus strategic selling, and it takes more people to be involved in that sales cycle. So it's more complex.
Hmm. And would you have an example of that you could share with us?
Yeah, I would say if you think of a single vendor, uh, selection strategy,
Hmm.
which who doesn't want that, right? Most vendors are going to say, well, if I could secure a contract or agreement with a corporation, a buyer, then I have a predictable annual recurring revenue. It all makes sense. So that strategy, and that's often applied to companies that are part of their go-to-market strategy is getting into a new geographic area. The customer acquisition cost is less. The risk of moving into a new market is reduced because you have a consistent, source of revenue coming in. But that would be one example.
Hmm. Okay, and I mean, strategic selling is something that really isn't industry specific. It's across all industries. But why is it important for LSPs in particular?
I think in the LSP space, it's somewhat fragmented. I think most people would agree with that, uh, which means, in my mind, a lot of different players going after the same wallet share within a particular company. And I think it's really important to understand what solution you're offering as a vendor in the LSP space, and I think it's important from a long-term perspective that someone looks at the value of the service that's being offered. I've talked to different companies, and there's this idea that, well, it's a bit based on relationship, and if I hire a certain salesperson, they're going to walk across the street with their book of business, and that doesn't typically happen. So I think it's more important to really think about a solution sell that takes longer. It's more complex, but the value is so much greater than someone's book of business that could be here, could go away really quickly.
Hmm. Hmm. And do you think it's across, because in the language industry, as you well know, we have, LSPs that have different focus. Maybe it's on a vertical market, or maybe it's a geographic market. Do you think that this applies to all LSPs or only those with a particular focus?
Well, I think it first starts with the ideal customer profile, right? I mean, I think if your go-to-market strategy, and I think of that as, first research, so you have data points and a business case, and then you get into the market strategy, which, uh, gets into the ideal customer profile. Y- You know, I would say it's really dependent upon that, but in general, yes. I think that it applies to all LSPs. I think in a particular um, segment or niche, it really does. As an example, someone who's selling into the legal space. I think the legal purchasing departments or the corporate legal departments really look for a solution more than they look for a one-off service. But I think it applies across the board.
Hmm. Okay, so I mean, you have to have this approved and agreed by management, but also then you have to embark on training a sales organization. How would you go about doing that?
I think it's multiple ways. Obviously, the first one is you hire an outside sales organization that focuses on strategic selling. A little history on strategic selling. I think Miller Hyman probably was the first player. I think they would suggest that they are the ones that created strategic selling. But there's others, type of strategic selling. One's called spin selling, situation, problem identification, needs payoff. Then there's challenger sales. That's more recent, more current, if you will. Uh, but I think, in my mind, you have to have somebody within your sales organization who is somewhat of an expert, or they become an expert so that they can train the rest of the sales organization and do that in a live situation, live settings with team selling. So, two ways. One, you purchase the knowledge from outside to come in and do training for the entire sales team. The second would be have somebody within the sales organization become an expert through various sources. You can pick up books and read books. You can go to seminars for a weekend or a few days. But that person then relates that knowledge to the rest of the sales teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. And historically, actually, if you look at, all the years that we've been staffing language service providers, I think a lot of them really, people have developed their career from maybe being in a client-facing project management role and then moving into sales. So that basic sales methodology is not always there in some of these organizations that have grown organically over the years. So, I think it's becoming more and more popular in the larger LSPs, of course, and that's but it makes a lot of sense. So thank you very much, Jim, for sharing those insights.
Oh, absolutely. Pleasure
Brilliant.
to be with you, Annette.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, lovely. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy the snow. Now, is it enough to go skiing?
Not yet. Not yet. It will be.
Okay. And how far away is the nearest ski area to you?
About a half a mile.
Oh, no way. Wow.
Oh, yeah. So
Okay.
It's great. I can look out my window and see it.
Okay, so even if you've got a lockdown over there, you can still potentially go skiing as long as you're not going with lots of people, right?
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Excellent, Jim. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Annette.
You've been watching LT Talks and listening to our LT Talks podcast. We were joined today by Jim Watson. I'd like to thank Jim very much for joining us, speaking to us about sales and strategic selling and breaking into new markets and why strategic selling is important for language service providers. If you stay with us, more information on where to find the podcast, where to download the podcast, where to access the video will be coming up next on our social page. Please do join us again next week, where we'll be moving back to Europe and speaking with a lady called Delphine Hervaux. Delphine worked for many years in Deluxe Digital and has a long and successful career in media localization. Now working as a freelance consultant based in France. We very much look forward to speaking with Delphine next week. Again, as I mentioned, information on where to find the LT Talks podcast and the videos coming up next. I'm Annette Lawler. Thank you for watching.